Is love something that we could put in a labeled box?
We think love instead of feel love. When we are attempting to think our feelings, that's when we get lost. That's when we get stuck. We start getting into expectation. And those expectations not being met, we get into disappointment. And then we get into victimhood. And from there, we get into depression. And we never actually really touch love. We never really dive into the expansiveness that it is.
You are missing the potential of what love is and whatever that connection is that you're feeling with the other person.
Authentic love happens because we're trusting in ourselves. We get to choose what love is in regards to how we desire to embody and experience it. We're allowing love to lead. We're leading with heart.
I love you.
I love you.
But do you really love me, or do you just love the idea of me?
No, I really love you. The question is, did you fall in love with me at first sight, or did you have to walk by again?
I wanted to walk by many, many times. But I'm glad that we took the time to really get to know one another and start our connection and our relationship as friends and then go even deeper from that standpoint. But what I want to kind of explore in this goofy little start is that whole perception of love at first sight and the notion of romanticized love, the storybook love, versus love and the expansive nature of the energy of love.
Mhm.
And if there is even a difference, like what is the difference, or is there a difference? Because we hear so many stories of people talking about their soulmates, their twin flames. That came onto the scene like a full-on rager party, right?
Mhm.
For a while, everyone was talking about their twin flames. And then you have individuals who have never talked about that at all and have been married for my parents, right? They have been married for 55 years now. And 60 years.
Yeah,
Oh
60
my
years. I
gosh,
was
I
gonna
took
say,
5 years off of that
60
tally.
years.
They've been married for 60 years. And that is a life partnership, a deep life partnership. So, in our true human cognitive fashion, where we like to put things in little labeled boxes in our brain shelf, what is this that we put in these different labeled boxes? And is love something that we could put in a labeled box?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't feel so. And I'm using that. I'm actively correcting myself between think and feel for a reason,
Yeah.
because I feel like this is actually one of the small things that humans do, that we all do,
We
that
as
actually
people.
we as people, um, but it makes a much bigger impact than we realize. And that is that we think love instead of feel love. And when we look at romanticized love, love that we see in the movies, love that we read in a book, love that even like spiritual terms that we've heard, a lot of that is thought. It isn't true feeling. It isn't something we're feeling. We're thinking about it. We're daydreaming or night dreaming, just dreaming. I don't know.
Just dreaming
Just
in
dreaming in
general.
general. Yes.
Yeah.
And we're placing this view as if, this is what it's going to look like and this is what it's going to be. And we don't realize that when we're processing in our brains about that, then we're getting into logic, we're getting into, unfortunately, and we start getting into expectation. We start getting into, through that expectation and those expectations not being met, we get into disappointment. And then from disappointment, we get into victimhood. And from there, we get into depression. There's so many triggers along this line. And then we almost start to get resentment. Like we start to feel resentful against love when it had nothing to, it never even started with real, authentic, true love in the first place. And so there's a complete disconnect. When we are attempting to think our feelings, that's when we get lost. That's when we get stuck. That's when we get pulled up into our head and then overthink and then overprocess. And we never actually really touch love. We never really dive into the expansiveness that it is. Because if and when we do, it's a whole other feeling, pun intended.
Do you ever get tired of that negative voice in your head telling you what you can and cannot do? My name is Amber Mikesell, and I personally got tired of that villainous voice controlling my inner realm. So I wrote this book, Silence Your Inner Critic. It's a comic book type series where you go in and you fight that villainous foe all along an epic quest. You can learn more about this fun filled adventure over at silenceyourinnercritic.com, and you can purchase your copy right there, or you can purchase it wherever you enjoy buying books. We read these romance novels or we watch these romantic movies. We have all of these inputs that show us examples of what love is supposed to look like, right? Here's your example. This is what it's supposed to look like. Enter category, right?
Mhm.
If you are going to have a romantic adventure, this is what that romantic adventure will play out like. And you have subcategories underneath of that. Even in rom-coms, there are different categories of rom-coms, right? But we get these inputs and these feeds, and we begin to set ourselves according to that. Or we hear soulmate, they're my soulmate. And I have one soulmate, or twin flame. They're the other part of me. They're the completion of me. Well, that would indicate that you're not whole and complete as you are, is the one thing I would offer. But even in that, we're thinking about it. What are the parameters then to be a soulmate or to be a twin flame? We get caught in the categorization of what makes someone that, but someone else not that.
Mhm.
So then we start to think about all of these things. That pulls us back from what you were just talking about, which is the feeling of where is the energy of love carrying me in this connection?
Mhm.
Where is the energy of love carrying me internally when I am in this connection? Which is so deep and profound just in itself. Instead, now I've moved everything externally.
Mhm.
And I'm starting to ask myself, well, based now on the movies that I've seen, or the books that I've read, or the research that I've done online about soulmates and twin flames and those connections, then does this fit within those parameters? Or somebody else that I've talked to who says that they're in that kind of a connection, is this a different kind of partnership? And if they don't check those boxes, then does that really meet it? Now we're really down a rabbit hole.
Mm.
But this, your heart, that's where we really start to feel that energy of love move. There's like this movement when you even say the word love in any language. You immediately start to feel your shoulders open, your chest open, this energy start to move. When you do heart centered or love, universal or divine love or prayer oriented, connected meditations, or you're bringing in love energy, that's where it moves. But suddenly, when you're categorizing and you go up in your head, you can't feel that. So you are missing the potential of what love is in whatever that connection is that you're feeling with the other person. And that could probably tell you. So we're moving from expansive, just non compartmentalized, unconditional love to romanticized love that's in our brain.
I love that. And it's no wonder that the love that we romanticize in our brain translates to actions. And the reality, at least for me, my perspective, is that that's what surface level love is. And then we attempt to breathe depth into it. But the problem is that it's always going to hit a wall. And there is no true depth to surface level love that is only action and romanticized based through the brain. That is, as we were kind of talking about, like that's just um, deep like
Yeah.
or infatuation or attraction.
Yes.
These are different things than love. They're extensions of.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. There's
There are categories. I guess you need
they're
categories, right?
extensions. Love is infinitely expansive, and so you know love can these things exist because of love. I would offer, like, that's, at least for me, that's just my feeling behind it. But we're limiting love when that is our focus. Because to me, and I believe we talked about this in our very first podcast, love is a consciousness, at least from my perspective. And, I know you just said energy.
Mm.
For me, I feel that all energy is conscious. And we are different variations and expressions of that consciousness. And a conscious, alive energy like love is something that we can choose to embody through a frequency that we are, through a frequency that we radiate, starting from the heart into the head and in then out into our actions. So what we feel can, through that love, can then help us understand how we think, and how we think can turn into how we do. And then so that way we're moving love from our deep, deep heart center, the knowing, the authentic, the real, the deep, true connection that that true consciousness moves through, that is our connection to our universal, it's like our universal access point into our physical being, which manifests through our thoughts. And through our thoughts, it manifests in the physical world into actions. And so then we're bringing love and breathing that into all that we do. And so we can, like, I'm still romantic. I still feel like there's some things from movies I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like, that's a fun idea. Like, wouldn't it be fun to do X, Y, and Z? But that's like, I'm not thinking whether we end up doing something like that, like we do this, fun, crazy date out in New York City or something like that, and it's like, okay, could that happen? Maybe. But if it doesn't, that doesn't change our love. That doesn't make our love less valuable. Just because it happened in a movie doesn't mean that that's the pinnacle of what love is.
Yes. It's not contingent.
Boom. Yes, it is not contingent. We get to choose what love is in regards to how we desire to embody and experience it. And when we can cultivate the expansiveness that it is into the physical forms that we are, then that allows for unlimited possibilities. But the beauty is that it allows for true depth.
Yes.
Without expansiveness, it can't have depth.
Yes. And I love how you put that, because it isn't that these are not extensions of love and part of love, but it's that expansiveness versus the other way. It isn't an expansion. It's almost as though it is in their own unique box. At least that is how we have seen it expressed. You are this or you are not this. Where when we come from that expansive nature of love, well, when you feel that love, You may be, and I'll use us again, because again, it is the only relationship from which I can speak from experiential context. You may be my life partner and my twin flame and my soulmate and my best friend and the best romantic experience I have ever had in my life. And all. So it's an and an and an and, because these are all extensions of love.
Mm.
But if I am looking at it from thinking about it, then how could my twin flame also be my soulmate? Also be, it's usually it came from, and from many of the conversations, it's like it is one or it is the other. So we lose that expansive, infinite, unconditional, unlimited nature that love is. It goes to the or instead of the and.
Mm.
And that is the beauty of coming at it from that expansive nature of love. I now have the opportunity to experience all things love offers with my best friend and my twin flame and 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 we expand and grow together. And if we hit a point where we decide that, okay, we're just going to take a little pause here and we're going to enjoy all of these things that we are currently experiencing, then we have that option too. And we get to just be in love. Then we can choose to grow in love again and expand together again.
It's absolutely beautiful. Um, it's almost like when we use the term or, it stands for organized resistance.
Ooh, look at
And
you
that's
go.
when we look at the universe, it's only natural. Humans have been doing, we've been doing this, and I'm one of them. And we've been doing this for years and years and years, where we attempt to understand that which is not understood. No one understands the universe in completion. No one
No.
understands love as a whole, complete thing. And so it's
But
only
isn't it
natural.
fun?
That's the fun. Yeah,
It's
it
so
is.
fun.
It's so fun. But that's the natural intention. And so I get I get it. Like, this isn't a condemning conversation. This is
Mhm.
simply an awareness opening conversation. This is to maybe and is authentically notify dimensionality. And so that's
I
really
don't
what
know
we're
how
looking.
you do that, but it is awesome.
That's what we're attempting to do, is recognize that we are multidimensional, and
Mhm.
we're notifying ourselves of the authenticity that we have, and the awareness could be that too. The awareness that we have, and we can do that through and is the ultimate expression of that limitlessness. It is the or that we are placing a limit, not only on ourselves but on love as a whole, right?
Mhm.
And so when we choose to embody love, any level of love, that is a beautiful thing. That is not something I'm saying, oh, it shouldn't be that. The question is what is the intention behind it? What is the authenticity behind it? And I believe that's what we're helping kind of bring forward and remind ourselves that this love that we experience and that we see in all these things, you and I were laughing a little bit, like when you're in a movie, like, you know, how many movies, like, it's not a real life, it's like a condensed experience of all the best or worst things. It's not like,
Yes.
2 hours of someone washing the dishes, because that's just, even though that's something we do every day.
Yeah, making
It's
dinner
like
and
making
washing the
dinner and, yeah,
dishes.
and running errands and all that. Now, they
Yeah.
may have snapshots in movies, but that's really what a movie is. It's attempting to explain a whole story in a snapshot within
Mhm.
2 hours or less. And that's not life. That is not our life. That is not exact. And
Mhm.
so this idea of there has to be romanticized in a movie to present a point, because there has to be these, kind of waves and moves and grab your attention for that time. And that's great for a thought-driven entertainment. But when we attempt to bridge that into reality, that's when we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Yes.
And I deeply feel that, to the point to where I felt, because I watched so many movies and I saw what love looked like in movies, and it wasn't what I was experiencing in my life, I deeply felt that love was created by Hollywood and Hallmark. That was the understanding that I had, that it wasn't real.
Yes.
And I was ready to live the rest of my life in a way that was, loveless in that sense.
And you
And
told me
I
that
told you that.
straight up.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, that's fun."
Yeah. Welcome to dating. But that's how jaded I got because I was so in my head about what I thought love should be and how my expectations were creating my own disappointments. And so it wasn't anyone else's fault. It was my own. It was only me to cause for the pain that I was experiencing around love.
Yes.
Straight up, I will call myself out on that. Sure, there was participation, but no one ever had a chance. No one had a chance because I wouldn't let them, because I wouldn't allow myself to. And that's unfair because that was all in my head and not in my heart.
And then I came in with cognitive recalibration,
Yes,
Black
exactly.
Widow style.
Yes, 100%. And got me out of my head and got me back into my heart. And then I got to fall in love with my best friend because I realized the end. Because I realized that love is so much more than just these categories. When we allow love to unfold in its greatest capacity, then the categories it flows into become excitement, it becomes experience, it becomes surprise, it becomes joy and bliss and all these incredible things. And it becomes greater than we could ever imagine because we're not getting in our own way. We're allowing love to lead. We're leading with heart.
Yes. The grandest thing I realized through the process was that our mind, and I know we keep saying the brain, I wanted to shift a little bit away from that because it isn't only the brain, it is the mind, which is more than the brain. But the mind will begin to put expectations and outcomes on love because of the inputs that we've received, right? We just have all of this data feed constantly coming in that creates this idea of what love is. Even if you've never seen a movie, a romantic movie, you've never read a romantic story, you've lived somewhere where maybe you were in a little isolated area, you just didn't get those. You still had what you saw from those around you. That created some level of expectation of what it looked like.
Mhm.
So we walk around with this expectation of what a romantic partnership or love at all is going to look like from our communities or our cultures. This is what love looks like versus going within our own soul and our own heart to seek to understand what does love feel like for me and the expansion that is available within me. Then how can I foster that feeling from within me to connect with the love that someone else is feeling within them? So we move it from that external program learned thing to an internal connected awareness that now I am fueling and firing up and moving that energy around and sharing. Then when that energy, I think of it like fire,
Mm.
literally like fire. If I have started a fire and I see it starting to smolder out, then I have to start to cause it to reignite. And the larger my fire grows, if you have a fire as well and your fire is a little bit dim, I can show you how I'm igniting my fire. And maybe I can even take a little bit of my fire and add it to yours. But if you don't keep fanning your flame, then it's still going to go dimmer and dimmer. But if I show you how to effectively fan the flame, then you can take from and understand how to fan your own. And if yours catches enormous fire and mine catches enormous fire, then they'll start to burn into one another and we have one huge fire.
Mhm.
That's still both our own fires, but now it's just like this raging inferno. And that's what strong relationships, powerful, loving relationships do. They just create this inferno of love that can be felt by others. And I feel like that's where we've gotten to. We're both very strong, loving beings on our own. But when people feel us together, they can feel that love that we have for each other and for everyone around us. And if we did that, every person, if we all got in touch with that love within and we just fueled that fire enough that we had our own raging inferno of love energy going on, and then we joined that together, just man, whew, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. That's such a good point. And even everything that we say and we share in our relationship isn't going to work for everyone.
No.
And it works for us because we understand and know each other and we feel that love. We share that love. We cultivate it. We connect with it and we prioritize it. How that shows up is going to be different for every single person, both individually and, as a couple or as a family or, collectively as a human species. Right. And so and I love that you were talking about, like, we all can show different things that are going to support each other. But in the end, authentic love happens because we're trusting in ourselves. And unless we cultivate that love from within, from a true authentic space, we're always going to inherently limit the expansiveness that is love. When we cultivate and trust in our true authentic limitlessness, then we can match the energy of the limitlessness of love. And that to me is abundant versus lack.
Yes.
So when we're thinking love, we're inherently approaching it from a lack standpoint. When we are feeling love, we are invoking deep, unbelievable abundance. Like I can't even think of, like, when I say abundance, it doesn't even feel like enough of a word. I was attempting to say a word. I was like, this actually doesn't feel like
There's not
enough.
a word
Yeah,
yet.
yeah, there just isn't. And love almost feels like it's such a constricting word on the energy that it is. It's amazing. And so when we can tap into that abundant nature, then all these other things start to fall away. I mean, the expectations start to fall away. The romanticizing starts to fall away. Romanticizing instead becomes romance.
Mhm.
Then we're not attempting to do it; we are living it.
Yeah, it really is just an extension
Hmm.
and not an expectation.
Hmm. Yeah, it's almost back to that idea of doing versus being.
Mhm. Exactly. And that embodiment of love, which is so different, but you begin by feeling love first.
Hmm.
To embody love means that we are so filled with love, with that feeling of love, that it has truly just integrated through our entire beingness. That is, for me, it took me a long time to move from the consistent thoughts to be in my heart, to allow that love to move and radiate to the stage where I felt comfortable enough for it to move throughout my entire form. That is vulnerability at its tipping point.
Hmm.
We are so consumed with If I am not a thought leader,
Hmm.
then I am being left behind. I must always be on the front, forward edge of the next great thing. And that comes from thoughts. That comes from always innovating through thoughts. So, fear, when I started to move into love and heart centered nature, was I will be left behind. Oh my gosh. But I can say now, from being on the other side and navigating that experience, I have far from been left behind. The heart center has such access to creativity, expansive awareness, and so many other things. Love is infinite. And with it comes access to so much more than I realized when I was in my thoughts, constantly thinking about all of this stuff, including what romance and love should be. Now I experience love in a way that I never knew was possible. I am a heart leader, and leadership is very different from this side of the fence. I would not go back.
That's beautifully said, my love. Beautifully said.
So, if you are interested in what the transition from thought to heart takes, part of that also is silencing that inner critic. And fortunately, we have a course for that. We have a crash course now that is available on silenceyourinnercritic.com, and it can help you begin to silence that negative voice in your head that can really keep us stuck in there and move us down into our heart center. So head on over silenceyourinnercritic.com and check that out. And then pop on back over here and check out all of the amazing content that we have for you right here on the Heart Leader podcast.